right? 1993, James Traficant Jr., who was assassinated for, speaking out against, people like IRS and democracy versus republic and stuff like that. He had his address to the House, and he brought up the U.S. bankruptcy speech and the importance of him putting this on the public record, putting this known information on the public record is so that people can't say that they don't know and can't say that they weren't told. Right? Now remember, this is 1993, and there's always a connection to Louis McFadden in 1933 speaking about bankruptcy and all that, right? It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act. It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, right? So they're not talking about, the things that set up the government are dissolved. They're talking about the United States federal government is dissolved. If the United States federal government is dissolved, then the actions that the United States federal government take after the dissolution are null and void. Right? Automatically. They're null and void. There's nothing that the so-called United States federal government can say or do after 1933 that gives them the power that they had prior to 1929. So the Emergency Banking Act, March 9th, 1933, declared by President Roosevelt, being bankrupt and insolvent. Right? So it's dissolved, it's bankrupt, and it's insolvent. So we just want to check those.
Dissolve.
Alright, so let's do dissolve first.
Dissolve.
Get my trusty spot right here. Alright, so dissolve.
To terminate, abrogate, cancel, annul, disintegrate, to release or unloose the binding force of anything, as to dissolve a corporation, to dissolve an injunction, see dissolution.
Right, okay, and then see dissolution.
Dissolution in contracts. The dissolution of a contract is the cancellation or abrogation of it by the parties themselves, with the effect of annulling the binding force of the agreement and resorting each party to his original rights. In this sense, it is frequently used in the phrase dissolution of a partnership. In practice, the act of rendering a legal proceeding null, abrogating, or revoking it, unloosing its constraining force as when an injunction is dissolved by the court. Of corporations, the dissolution of a corporation is the termination of its existence as a body politic. This may take place in several ways, as by act of the legislature, where that is constitutional, by surrender or forfeiture of its charter, by expiration of its charter by lapse of time, by proceedings for winding it up under the law, by loss of its members or their reduction below the statutory limit.
All right, so that's dissolved, and then get bankrupt. Okay, so the United States federal government is dissolved in 1933. So it's terminated. To terminate, right? To disintegrate. is dissolution. Now, if something's disintegrated, and then somebody's trying to say that the thing that's disintegrated is still in existence, clearly those people have serious mental problems. Because disintegrate means there's nothing left. Disintegrate means that there's nothing. There's nothing there. Powder. Right? In contracts, dissolution, when something is dissolved, it's resorted to original right. With corporations, termination as a body politic. So we know that United States federal government was a contract and a corporation. So if the corporation was dissolved or there was dissolution, then it's terminated as far as a body politic is concerned. Right? So if it's terminated as a body politic, then that means there's no offices in this body politic because there's no body politic. Right? 73rd Congress, M. Session, June 5th, 1933, joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause. Dissolve the sovereign authority of the United States. Right? So terminated the sovereign authority of the United States. It's terminated. Disintegrated the sovereign authority of the United States. So if the sovereign authority, which is where they're going to authenticate, right? Because they're going to go to a terminated body politic office to authenticate the birth certificate. And if the so-called terminated body politic office authenticates the document, now that individual is that individual is now a holder in due course of a dissolved, whether it's contract or corporation, terminated body politic by having that authentication or that authentication done. Because the fact that they didn't realize that the sovereign authority is dissolved. They need sovereign authority to authenticate. They need sovereign authority to authenticate. They can't authenticate a document without sovereign authority. If they are doing it, clearly they're not sovereign. And if they're not sovereign, then they're not government. And if they're not government, more likely there's some type of foreign inquisitionist corporation disguising itself as government. And then the people are going with the fact that they disguise themselves as government. Right? Now, keep in mind that this is common knowledge to the people who are doing the process of making sure they authenticate people's stuff and put a seal and make sure that the cover page has the whatever, and you know, if you have any issues, here's our card, call us or whatever like that. But they're dissolved. Like, they're dissolved. They don't exist. They're obliterated. And people are pretending that they exist. People are under the illusion. If you've seen, it reminds me of that movie with frickin' Eve and Labby or something like that, with Jennifer Lopez, and this other lady. I can't remember her name, but the moral of the story is that her son gets killed in some drive-by, whatever. You know what I mean? So she goes to some mother's help, or people who lose their children or whatever. Like she goes to like AA meeting or whatever for mothers whose children died. So she goes there. She meets Jennifer Lopez or whatever like that. They're having these conversations about, well, if they killed your son, they should die and stuff like that or whatever. They did their little detective whatever, found out who it was that set it up from the guy who was just nobody, that was just on the corner doing the work, to actually who the big guy was or whatever. So they went up the ladder, killing these guys or whatever. Police are looking into it, trying to figure out, who did it or whatever. But during the thing, they were dealing with like, when they're doing these meetings, they go into like the psychological aspect of it or whatever. So they're explaining how, different people have different ways of dealing with the death or whatever. So, they had some mothers who, on the birthdays of their son or daughter that got killed or whatever, they would be talking from the perspective of their child still alive, and they're going to their house to go see them or whatever like that, knowing that ain't no child around or whatever, right? Psychological aspect. So it all came down in the end to Jennifer Lopez being the lady's psychological issue, because she was imaginary. And she wasn't having she wasn't having any conversations with no lady about doing anything. She was doing everything on her own, right? She had in her mind, Jennifer Lopez had a bag, and then she realized that the bag that had the gun that Jennifer Lopez always had, every time she would kill somebody, Jennifer Lopez would be there, give me the gun or whatever, put it in the bag, and then she'll, don't worry, I'll handle this or whatever, right? Then she realized that, she used to just put the bag under the seat. And the illusion of, actually dealing with somebody and having a friend who cares about her situation, and she's been there too, and whatever like that, all that stuff was illusion.
So psychologically, she had to create something to put herself in a situation that if I do something bad,
then somebody's gonna help me get, but also condone the fact that you're doing something bad. It's all right, because you should do that because of what you've been through and the blah blah blah. Right?
It's like traumatic for her, so she has to go through.
So the individuals who are doing these processes, right?
That is so much fun.
The individuals who are doing these processes are like her, right? They have this illusionary thing that is supposed to put money in their account and get them to get rid of all their debts, and if they get a ticket, they could go to court and say that, I'm the owner of the birth certificate, all that stuff, and these people are looking at them talking to themselves, talking about, you know what I mean? I own the straw man, here it is, and all that stuff, and you're not even talking about something that's in existence. You're talking about something that is disintegrated. You're talking about something that is terminated, that doesn't even have a body politic behind it, giving it any power, right? The next one was bankrupt.
Originally and strictly, a trader who secretes himself or does certain other acts tending to defraud his creditors. In English law, there were two characteristics which distinguish bankrupts from insolvents. The former must have been a trader in the object of the proceedings against, not by him. As used in American law, the distinction between a bankrupt and an insolvent is not generally regarded. A person who has committed an act of bankruptcy, one who has done some act or suffered some act to be done in consequence of which, under the laws of his country, he is liable to be proceeded against by his creditors for the seizure and distribution among them of his entire property. The term includes one against whom a voluntary petition has been filed.